Hi, welcome to Wedding Planning Wednesdays. I didn't even realize it's like mirrored, but I have these flowers up because I am preparing for a shoot this week at home. And I'm actually not sure if I'm gonna shoot these, but I've had these giant paper flowers. I think I actually went live while putting them together. And yes, they've been sitting in my apartment for that long. And I finally put it together on this arch that I have. And I'm just trying to see how it looks, but I want to use it for my niece's birthday. And so I want to see how it looks, if it comes together, if I want to keep it. But in the video right now, it looks pretty cute. And I didn't even know what was going to be in my frame. So let's do that a little more. Okay. In any case, thank you for joining me today. My name is Jane Yu. I am a wedding and event planner based in Los Angeles. I own a company called UNS Events with my husband, John, and I love supporting engaged couples plan and design their unique wedding from beginning to end. And I like to think that I'm lowering their stress levels and raising their enjoyment to a maximum. So today I'm going to just touch a little bit upon wedding style and what that means. And wedding style, wedding design, it's a little bit interlinked, but maybe the term wedding design or designing your wedding is a little bit better. But I wanted to break it down into 4 different phases that you can think of it as. Similar to setting the foundation for planning, thinking of it as in chunks, I think same goes for design. Because if you're not naturally creative, let's say, like if you don't have a creative line of work, or maybe it's just not something that a muscle that you use all the time. I completely get it because my background is actually doing branded events and I worked in a bigger agency. And so I was a producer. So I handled a lot of the logistics and I worked hand in hand with the creative director and designer and all of that. But I wasn't the one really driving the creative process. I definitely partnered and collaborated, but I wasn't the one trying to figure all of that out. More functional and logistical rather than like the tangible creative elements. So when I moved into wedding planning, even my brain, I felt like I hadn't really exercised those muscles a lot. So I learned a lot while working with my couples and helping them try to figure out different design elements for their wedding. And so I wanted to break it down right now just into a few simple steps. And I think the first step really is figuring out just the overall concept before you even do anything, like before you even think about a color palette or what kind of flowers you want or whatever, anything like that. I think figuring out just the general concept of your wedding is important. And I think that's between you and your partner, how you want the day to feel, what you want it to even look like, how that is actually related to your love story. I think that's really important. I think it's really easy to get lost in like the colors and flowers and floor plan and things like that. But I think already couples make a lot of decisions based on this feeling or vibe that they want to create at their wedding. And so just thinking of that from the beginning, I think is really important. So talking to you and your partner to figure out what that is for the two of you. It's different for everybody and it shows up in very different ways for everyone. For example, it's it can be venue, or it can be in your signage or your graphics or your invitations. It could be something that's very private that people might not even notice. It's really not for anybody else, but for the two of you, maybe you capture pictures of it. But it can be just small details that speak to the story that you're trying to tell through your wedding. And whatever you want to include as part of that. So, for example, one of my clients who got married a couple of years ago, they had their first date at Santa Monica Brewworks. and they wanted to do their wedding there. And they had a very unconventional wedding. They didn't do a traditional ceremony, cocktail hour reception. They did do a smaller ceremony the day before with very close family and friends. And then they did a party the next day at Santa Monica Brew Works. And that was really fun. And they were a very laid back couple. They wanted just to hang out, like casual vibe with their friends and family. And it totally worked for them. And I think they went into this thinking that that would be the exact vibe that they were going for. And it felt totally like them. And that's not for everyone, right? But it totally worked for them. And even in their signage and just the colors and all of that, everything was kept pretty simple and just spoke to the space. So that's one example. And I think even with our wedding, when John and I got married, I think he's on the live right now. Hi, John. We wanted our wedding to be a party. And we did want the standard elements of it. I mean, maybe looking back at that point, I feel like people were just starting to really break out of the box with wedding concepts. But at that time, we wanted to just keep the party going, and we wanted to get to the dancing as quickly as possible. And so we did a Korean buffet dinner, and then we got through like all the formalities, and then we essentially had our party or dancing and after party at the same venue. And then as we were trying to look for like a inexpensive way to kind of bring a little bit of fun. And so we created these little like flash tattoos of ourselves with our hashtag, and then we handed them out and everyone just had them on themselves. And that was super fun, I thought. And also they did not come off for like a couple of weeks for a lot of people. It just took a long time to scrub off, but that was a really fun element that I thought, and that was very much reflective of who we are. And then we also had an outfit change, which not everyone does, but a lot of people do. But we just changed into a style that felt more like us after the wedding. So, it shows up in very different ways and different details, and it doesn't have to be in every single detail. But once you figure out this concept and this feeling, whatever that is, then it's going to help you just make very informed decisions as you plan. Now, the second phase is research, right? So the first phase, when you're doing concepting, you might be just dumping all your ideas into an Instagram folder, collection folder, or Pinterest folder, or Pinterest board. You might just be brain dumping everything and then just talking about things, like writing things down. Then the second phase in the research is after you start looking at your ideas and things that you've pulled, and you start like honing it down, or what's the word? Paring it down, honing into more of the concept. And so picking elements that are more real with intention, that you really are thinking about having to show up. And so you want to see how these elements can become reality and how it's going to show up in different spaces of your wedding, whether it's the invitation, the website, your tablescape, your table numbers, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that's kind of the phase where it starts to get a little bit more real, but you're seeing what's possible and what's not, right? Also with budget, you want to see what kind of vendors are available for you. Maybe there's a graphic designer you really want to work with who you've seen online. And you just have to start prioritizing what those elements are. And then in that phase, you probably want to come up with a more specific mood board that's intentional, that you're going to use to actually start planning. I think the research phase definitely takes a long time, because the concept phase is really fun, but it can feel kind of chaotic because you're just kind of dumping everything. And sometimes it's hard to understand why you like something. And so that's something that a planner could definitely help you with. It's something maybe you could ask a friend who works in the creative space. Maybe you could ask them for help. You could always ask ChatGPT now. Sometimes, though, I find ChatGPT sometimes confuses me more, to be honest. But I feel like ChatGPT is a really good sounding board, and I'm sure it's obviously improving all the time, every day. And so just figuring out why you like something and then actually starting to think like, oh, this is how I want this, my concept or our love story to show up. Um, Another example that I want to share is I think through the planning phase with one of my clients, I learned that they really loved to travel and they had traveled to a lot of places in the world together. And so I found that the seating chart is a very good element to utilize to showcase people's love stories or their interests, because it's a it's something that can be as simple as just like a board, but it's also something that can be as big as like a wall backdrop with a fully designed space. And so for us, we did a little bit of a custom element where we hired an illustrator and designer who made the seating cards and illustrated each of their favorite places that they went to. So every table number was actually a place that they visited. So like Bali, Spain, etc. And the illustrator drew different kind of iconic landmarks in those different places or cities or countries that they've been to. And then they assigned seats to or people to those tables, and then it matched essentially the table number that was on the table eventually. So that was a really fun one because we kind of put it all together. Um, we put it all together pretty, what's the word? It was a custom element, and we sourced a frosted acrylic board, and then we the designer basically did calligraphy, handwritten calligraphy as well. So it was really fun to put that together for them because this was something that I learned while working with them. So that's a pretty simple way that you could show your love for travel um, in a wedding. So now the third phase after research, at this point now, you probably have a pretty set board and direction for the creative elements and different things. So now it's time to actually plan. What that means is you're making decisions based on the information that you've been receiving from vendors, maybe friends, anyone else you've been talking to, and you have priced everything out, and you start making decisions. You start booking the people, you start picking the colors, you start picking the flowers and scale of things. And at this point, when you're actually spending money, I think it's easy to understand yourself and figure out, oh, this is really priority for me, or it feels like priority for me versus um, just an idea I was thinking about and that I didn't care about. And I think that's going to happen a lot actually during planning, especially when there's a little bit more pressure and you're feeling the stress of everything. You're going to realize I am definitely going to just spend money on this challenge, or I definitely don't want to spend money on that. I think it'll be easier to make those decisions once you have to actually make them and once you're actually throwing down those deposits. So that's the planning phase. And then the last phase, which is one of the best phases, in my opinion, is the execution phase, because you really see it all come to life. Whether it's working with vendors to put everything together, or maybe you're doing DIY elements to bring some of these ideas to life, but seeing it all come together, the weeks leading up to it, and seeing it all happen at your wedding venue is going to feel really special. Ideally, you would have at least a coordinator to help manage all of these logistics with vendors. You definitely don't want to be dealing with any of that on your wedding day. So I have worked with some couples who, enlisted all their friends or family's help. Actually, for my own wedding, I did have a coordinator, but I did ask my cousins to help out as well for certain things and help the coordinator with certain things. So I think as long as you have a plan for how things are going to work logistically, the execution phase is, of course, one of the most fun parts. And then you walk into your wedding day and you're going to be really excited because all your hard work is obviously has come to fruition. So that's kind of the 4 different phases of designing your wedding or figuring out your wedding design or your wedding style. And I'm going to dive more into wedding styles, just different types of wedding styles when it comes to aesthetics. That's a little bit different than figuring out your concept. I think your concept, and it's not, this element I feel like is not quite important to everybody. I think a concept can be as simple as you want it to feel really chill and laid back. And one of my clients did do that. They had a backyard wedding. They didn't have any dances. They maybe just did their entrance and they said a thank you speech. They had no dances, no first dance, no parent dances, no speeches. And then it was just dancing. And that's because they just wanted everyone to just hang out. They didn't want all these formalities. And that was, in my book, a concept, right? Because that's not technically standard for a wedding, but that's how they wanted it to feel. And because it was a backyard wedding, it was beautiful, and very elevated as well. But it felt really chill that day for sure, because we weren't trying to race against time, against the timeline to like get all of these things done. And so it can be as simple as that, or it can even be simple as some people just really want the dance floor to be poppin', right? And like that's like their main priority. I think that's a good enough priority or a good enough concept. Like you just want it to feel like a party. And I feel like that's really what John and I wanted for ours. And I think it did end up feeling like that. And so, of course, everyone getting married, I hope you want your guests to have a great time. But what that great time is, it looks different for everybody. And that's totally okay. But I just wanted to say it doesn't have to be some full blown production for it to feel like you, or for you to understand, or for you to feel that you have a concept. So I don't want to discourage anyone from feeling like, or like, I don't want to make people think that you have to come up with something. It's just, I think it's great to think about, to figure out what you and your partner want more than anything else. And then it will just help all the decisions that you're going to make. I think at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. Setting the foundation, figuring out how you want everything to feel, and then all of those tangible, creative, logistical, all of those elements will really fall into place. Anyway, hope that was helpful. I do have a digital wedding planner that you can check out. I've linked it in the comments, or not comments, in the description below. I also have a free wedding planning guide that you can download. It's essentially a planning timeline and task list. It's a part of my digital wedding planner. So you can check that out if you're just getting started. It's wedding season now, so we're a little bit busy this season, but I'm really excited to start or continue working on just some exciting products and services that I'm creating and developing. So if you have any questions, again, I would love for you to drop them in the comments. Thank you to the people who subscribed to my channel this week. And if you did like my video, I would love, or if you found it helpful, it would be great if you could hit that like button for me. And if you want to subscribe for more content, you can hit that subscribe button. And I do show up here pretty much every Wednesday so far for Wedding Planning Wednesdays. I will be in Houston next week with John for another event that we're producing, but I will still be showing up same time, 4:30 Pacific. It might be short. We might do it together, which would be really fun and special. We haven't done one of those yet, and I'm really excited for the time that we do. So anyway, have a good night and have a great rest of the week.